Hey guys, you're listening to the SouthCack Syndicate Podcast.
My name's Brad Price with Creekwood Landscapes.
And if you want to find out how perfection is the enemy of profit, stay tuned for a little bit more. Coming up, Brad Price.
Hey, this is Liz, and you're listening to the SouthCack Syndicate Podcast.
Oh, thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. Jared Ketterman here.
Kyle Voss.
Man, what a day. Man, it's been a heck of a morning, too. It's just so much is going on in the world. Yet Nikki Haley announced that she's running for president.
I did see that.
You got DeSantis, you got Trump, and nobody from the Democratic side. We don't talk politics, but I found it interesting. You know, in February, Nikki announced, and it's just like former governor.
Can I make a prediction?
Yeah.
My prediction is whoever ends up being the Republican candidate, she will be the vice president candidate with that person.
Yeah, that's a good prediction.
And she will also be our next president.
Now, I will tell you this.
So y'all hold on to this podcast. That's
your prediction?
That's my
I will
prediction.
tell you a good play. Now, whether it happens or not, I don't know. But Trump, DeSantis, Trump, whatever, that would actually be a good party ticket because DeSantis is more of the operations guy. Trump's more of the, idea guy.
So I talked to some guys in Washington, and they were like, DeSantis is worse than Trump.
As far as what, though?
The whole suck the air out of the room kind of guy.
Well, yeah. Here's the whole thing. These days, it's all about how you can draw a crowd and who you can get, kind of rowing on the same boat that you're on. And listen,
But
I'm not saying that Nikki Haley won't be great. I actually think Nikki Haley will be great. I think she will be a great vice president and then kind of ramp up into that.
Heather's rooting for her for
presidency.
sure. She really likes Nikki Haley.
Yeah, Tupac said back in the day, we're not ready for a black president. And that was in 96. He was rapping, we're not ready for a black president. I don't know that we're ready. I really don't think we care at this point.
I don't think there's a ready. I think in '97 we could have elected a black president if the right person was there.
Here's what
I don't think color had anything to do with it.
Here's what I hope in the next 4 years to 12 years. I hope that policy becomes more important than personality.
This could be a whole episode. But right now we're with Brad Price. He was a guest earlier on in the season, and he is with Creekwood Landscaping. Welcome back, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to talk a little bit about, this is going to be a short podcast, but we want to talk a little bit about performance-based pay in the workplace and why it's important. And if you're not doing it, you might want to think about it. Now, when I say performance-based pay, I'm not talking about, but I kind of am. It's very confusing. If you're a car salesman, you get a small draw, and then they pay you for the one unit you sold. Okay, that's a little different than what I'm talking about today, right?
Yeah, it's on the same level, I guess, as it's still performance-based in a way.
Most sales, no. If you're in sales and you're not performance-based pays, then you should be.
Let's talk about from a production standpoint. Let's say your job is to produce 17 widgets. If you produce those 17 widgets, you get to keep your job.
Right.
If you produce 28 widgets, you get to keep your job, and we're going to pay you a little more.
Yeah,
That's right.
And if you do 47, like once you cross a certain tier, maybe you even get a little more bump.
And then I think where we're going now is if you do that 2 or 3 or 6 months or a year in a row, then all of a sudden we're going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe we should invest in you a little more.
That's exactly right. So I come from a background in corporate where I was taught performance-based pay and why it worked. And so I'll give you a little example. If our human nature, we want to be validated. I mean, I don't care what you do.
Yeah, you're right.
You want to be validated.
Yeah.
Performance-based pay, in my opinion, my humble opinion, means validation because you work and you get paid your worth, right? And you can get paid your worth. Kyle just pulled a cork out of a little bullet bottle there. You get paid your worth, but
I figure we're going to be here for a while.
When we talk about
my prediction is this will be longer than 30 minutes, but let's
not at all.
Let's go ahead.
When we talk about worth, it's not just about a domination. It's not about a physical dollar. It's about being valued, and if that's giving equity in your company or raising your pay rate for performance-based metrics. So depending on the industry you were in our industry, we had a slew of metrics. And so we'd put performance on each of these metrics, what was valuable to our company. And our company was in the service industry, where at the end of the day, the customer had to be the happiest.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you take an hourly employee that's just going to run the rigmarole to do his job, and he's making $26 an hour, whatever.
He's just ready to get off.
He's like, I'm just going 9 to 5. But when I enter performance metrics, now his customer service is a metric. So when he gets scored on his customer service, that's a metric. And at the end of the day, these metrics have to end in a certain value. If all his value's in at the end of the month, I'm going to bonus him out, because not only is he making the company more money,
he's good customer service.
He is finding value in himself.
Yeah.
When we entered in performance-based pay, here's the number one thing we saw. What do you think it'd be? Number one thing we saw when we took an hourly guy or a paid by the job guy to performance metrics?
Well, I would say you immediately find out success or failure of an individual. Like there are some people who understand,
don't care,
and there are some people who just
they're still going to be an ass to the customer. They're not going to be like, I don't care nothing about hit that stupid metric. I'll just make my pay.
Yeah, and you're right. You are 100% right with both of those answers. We found less turnover.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because once you get the core group,
less turnover equals 100% profit.
Yeah,
because in our industry, it cost us, I don't remember the number, $20,000 to onboard an employee.
Do you know why that is?
Because it was a lot of training.
Because there's a cost of education of everything.
Throwback to the last episode.
That on the last podcast.
If that's the first time you've ever heard that, go back and listen to the other podcast.
Yeah, listen to episode 27 with Brad Price. That's a great one. But less turnover is to any company's bottom line, 100% profit.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like the point that you kind of made just now, that when you say performance based pay, it's not just about performance of sales. It's about performance of
customer service.
Customer service.
Yeah. How much time was I in the customer's home? Because look, if you ever had a dishwasher break and you have to make that dreadful phone call to appliance guy, and you're going to stand there. For one, it's awkward conversation. It's a stranger in your personal residence. It's a lot of things. Yeah. Dogs are barking.
So here's what I tell all of my guys. I also tell all of my customers this. We initiate a sale. We decide what we're going to do, and here's what I tell them. I said, "Look, I have another job.
Sure,
I do 2 different things. So this is my part of the job. So you're not going to see me here every day. Jacob's my guy. You're going to see Jacob.
Yeah.
Now, here's the deal. If you come out here and you ask Jacob if he can do something, he is going to do it. Period.
That's right.
If you care about what that costs, you better call me ahead of time. Because I tell all of my guys, every one of them, it doesn't matter. If the client walks out, and it doesn't matter if you're cutting grass, if you're doing a full landscape install, if you're clearing trees, it doesn't matter. Building a boulder wall and they don't like the way it looks. If they ask you to do something, the answer is yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and you
better call Brad.
Now, if you care about what that costs to get that done, you better call me ahead of time.
Hey, I just told him
so good.
So it instills 2 things. One, with the client, my guys are going to do whatever you ask them to do. And with my guys, at the end of the day, the client's wishes are the most important thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the most important
there are some
thing.
clients that don't even call you because they don't give a shit what it costs.
They may not.
They're like, no, I want it this way.
Yeah, and that's that's fine. That's fine. And listen, I'm not taking advantage of people, but at the end of the day, a change order costs money, and whether or not you care about that, you need to decide that. If you walk out and ask, employee number 12, whatever, to do it this way, I have trained him to do that. If it takes him more time, if it takes more equipment, if it takes more process, then it's going to cost more to do that. Right. So if you don't care, just ask them. I'm telling you, as long as they're on your job site, when you ask them, they're going to do whatever you ask.
So give us an example of performance-based pay, like in your industry, maybe in your industry, Brad.
So in my corporate industry, we were a customer service industry.
Yeah.
And so our performance metrics were lined out for that industry. And whatever industry you're in, if you're listening, it's not if, because you're listening.
If you're listening.
What industry you're in, you have to decide what performance metrics you want to put in place. Don't put in a performance metric of be on the job by 8 o'clock. That's a standard.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right.
So
I guess what I'm trying to get out of you is like an example of what a good, because there's crappy performance-based metrics.
Sure. So in our industry, but I still want to encourage, don't set performance-based metrics on stuff that is automatically required in society.
To keep a job, like you said earlier.
Show up to work with a valid driver's license and pass a drug test.
Filling up the truck at the end of the day and making sure the transfer tanks and the equipment's clean. Like
there's no way I'm paying you extra to show up drug free with a valid driver's license.
Well, it's like what he said. If you make 17 fidget spinners, then you still have a job.
Yeah.
Oh, but then now if you do 20.
Yeah. So an example for us in the day, and I just brought it up, was customer service is so important to us. So at the end of every time a technician would leave a home, then we would do an automated survey. And there were 5 questions, because I know, how many times do we say, would you stay on the line for a survey? No.
Yeah.
But some people click yes. And that is exactly what AT&T, whoever I'm on hold with on the phone, that's exactly what they're doing. They're performance-based paying the guys or girls on the job based on my information from a customer. So number 1 was, were you satisfactory with our technician? Now, there's a lot of metrics in one question, right? So we'd scale it. And I can't tell you how many meetings we had about this. Okay, do we put the number? Now, you got to remember, this is in early 2000s to 2014. So, keypads were still valid, right? So we were thinking, we'll do the for the customer service part of it. Were you happy with your technician? 0 to 10. Well, automatically we found a problem with that, because
we hit 1 for 10, that'd be 1.
That's right. That's the problem we found.
Yeah. Like, it was either 1 or 10.
I'm not making this up.
Yeah, it was either 1 or 10.
No double digits in your telephone
it's gonna be 0 to
survey.
9.
That's exactly right. And then, but our scoring was based not on 0 through 9. It was based on 0 through 3. 4 through 7, 7 through 10.
And technically 0 through 9 is 10 digits.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
That's right. But don't put the number 10.
Yeah.
So here's what we did once we automated the system and we were getting all this data. I'm an analytics guy, right? I love data. I love the micro. I don't want to live in the macro. I want the micro. I want to really sort through data. So the 0 to 3 guys, they weren't in trouble. What we found was whoever trained this person, we could track them to that state, that class. Now we have a training problem, and it allowed us more information to make our company better. So without performance-based pays and customer surveys and this, that, and the other, and whatever metrics you put on, don't just pay based on great metrics. Use those metrics as learning opportunities.
Yep. So when I was in the corporate world, I heard a great quote that goes right along with what you're saying. And it literally, when they said it, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was like, man, I never thought of it like that. We had this third-party company come in, was talking to us about whatever, and they basically were like, if a company has to fire somebody, it's their fault.
It's the company's fault?
Company's fault, no matter what. And I was like, yeah, but what if they're like just a shitty employee? It's the company's fault because they didn't hold.
Well, I was getting ready to say one of the biggest mistakes. Mistakes, and one of the hardest things to overcome is a bad hire.
Yeah, so it's two things.
Fast to fire.
Yep. It's 2 things. You either didn't hire well or you didn't train well. Either way, it's the company's fault if you have to fire somebody.
And I've been in corporate. Like it's a different animal from being an entrepreneur, right? I'll never be Fortune 500. Don't want to be, right? But you're right. And one of the things we used to say was be slow to hire, fast to fire. And even if we're fast to fire, it's still our fault.
Yeah.
And then some of it's not, because some of it can be, I get what you're saying.
You get hoodooed.
No, it's not just hoodooed. They just make poor life decisions off the clock. Okay, so it has nothing to do. We're not firing them based on their metrics.
Yeah, but listen,
they just got a
hold on.
DUI.
I know plenty of guys that make poor life decisions on the clock and were very successful business people.
It doesn't matter what happened on Friday and Saturday, or even.
I'm sitting in front too.
I don't know anybody like that. I mean, mimosas at 10 should be a standard policy in your company. I'm just kidding. No, you'll know your company, right? So we did. And again, corporate is a different animal than what we do today.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So it's so different. Like I have almost no point of reference. Like the biggest corporate world I ever worked in was Edwards Auto Sales, and I worked in the parts department back there.
That's not corporate, just by the way.
Yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying. That was probably the biggest machine in my life.
You probably get a sense of what corporate world's like, except for you don't necessarily have as much like. Climbing the ladder, stepping on other people type of.
Yeah. So for me, it comes down to like names. And, I walk onto a job site at the beginning of the process, a few times during the process, and I walk onto the job site at the end of the process. And I encourage all of my guys to speak to the client, tell the client your name. And when I walk on at the end of the project, not only do I know who did what I asked them to do, but I know who did a good job.
The client's telling you.
The client knows their name.
Yeah.
And the client can tell me how this individual did. Yeah. I like this person. This person worked well. This person did this. This person did that.
So let's get back to, I would love for you guys, and I'll maybe give my own a little opinion. I mean, you guys got more experience than I do on this, but like what would be a good, proper performance-based pay schedule for somebody to use in their own business if they're not currently doing it, or just maybe like some ground rules or
let me draw a big line right here. All right, so I'm going to make a distinguishing line between performance-based pay and shared ownership.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Good call. Yeah.
It's still performance based.
It is still performance based.
You're just upping the ante with equity instead of money.
You're right. When we talked about performance based pay and I said 17 widgets versus 20 or 28 widgets, whatever the number was I said. All right, that's performance based pay. When I start talking about earning equity in a business, that is a different animal. At that point, I'm trying to figure out whether an individual
business partner,
that paycheck is more important to them or investing in something.
I disagree with your statement because I don't think you're trying to figure out. I think you've already identified the person because you're only going to pick.
You're only going to give equity to somebody.
Well, that may be true. That may be true. I guess I'm trying to figure out whether they're on the same page.
Now, if you want to talk ESOP, that's a whole nother conversation.
I guess the thing I'm trying to distinguish is, do you pay somebody? So performance-based pay would be, hey, I'm going to give you 25 cents for every widget. There's no number.
I understand your question. Here's
You're saying 17 widgets is just to keep a job.
Yep.
So that's a different model of performance-based pay.
So your question was, what kind of time frame do you think you ought to measure performance on? That was your original question.
Or do you do like a base plus kind of deal?
So
do you do
those are two different questions. So one is the time frame of when you measure performance, and the other is how to set up performance.
And I guess the setup part would be
the setup's one conversation, but I do want to go back to your first question on time. We could do at the end of the year, tally up all your scores and load you up with a massive check.
Like a bonus check.
Okay, a big one because we've waited 12 months and you've hit all 12 metrics. What we learned early on
they get discouraged along the way.
It's not even that. From the company side, from my seat, from my chair as CEO, I didn't want to wait a year to start reviewing metrics and having performance reviews.
Yeah.
I wanted to hand them a bonus check and say, this is what you did great. You did miss this metric. You still got your bonus.
So let's kill it next quarter.
Let's focus on this. And I go to the corporate trainer and say, here's what Jim is great at, and use him. You can actually, based on his scores, you can probably actually bring him in on training. But I don't want to wait 12 months to do that because I've already missed the boat.
Not only that, if you need to get rid of somebody or
that's right,
you've waited way too long.
And you said discouragement, and I guess it kind of is, Kyle, because if your boss isn't telling you what a great job or what not a bad job, but how you should improve on your current job.
Let me tell you something. the hardest day you work is the day after you get that bonus check. You get that bonus check from the last quarter, the next day you're hitting it hard.
Unless you're a cop, because you're writing 20 tickets that last day to get your bonus.
Well, and
I'm just saying.
One of the other things is it better to raise the ceiling or is it better to raise the floor? And I'm a raise the floor guy. So what I mean by that is your organization, your band, we've talked about music before, whatever it is, your musicianship, your organization is only as good as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. The success of the business is actually benefited more by raising the floor.
You're 100% right.
Than by raising the ceiling.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No, that's right. Because now, once you've hired your base, that's actually a lot that you just said. Once you hire your base, now you've got a pretty good foundation. To raise your floor, you're going to have to lose some of that and put better blocks underneath to go up. So now you got a stronger foundation. Now you've raised the bar, and not every Joe Blow is going to knock on your door and put an application.
20, I bet it's 20. I can go back and look. I'm going to guess it's 20 to 25, somewhere in that gap. 20 to 25 employees that have come through my company in the last 5 to 8 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And how many employees do you have today? Just give me an idea.
I have 8.
Okay.
I have eight employees today, but I bet it's 20 to 25 that have come through that. Now, those are guys who didn't make the floor line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is raise the floor by identifying those people inside the organization who, if you give them an option to take, like you were talking about, we're talking about performance-based pay. If I gave you an option to take a bonus paycheck versus a percentage of the business, who would take that?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. And I'll tell you why. I had this opportunity. It literally fell in my lap. Without disclosing, right? The company sold, and the new owner came to me and he said, "You're doing a great job. Do you want 30% of this deal?" And I went, "Nah, man. I don't even know you. I'm probably out of here in 6 months." 10 years later, we sell the company. You know what I didn't get?
That 30%.
Yeah. And I'm not mad at it. It was my choice.
Yeah.
And it's like,
so did you make that decision on whether or not you wanted to get in bed with that?
He wanted the cash.
I hate to use
He wanted the cash.
There was no option. I was an employee and I wanted safety net. Okay. Looking back, if I had that conversation today, I said, I don't want 30%. I want that 30%. I'll buy in the next 30%. I promise that you're not going to regret it.
Yeah. And the reason he wanted you to get into that, though, is because he knows that you would build that business.
Well, he sees value.
Well, if you came to me and said that, I'd have probably sold you that at 30%.
There's no question. It's like to go back.
Jared actually did that exact thing on another deal after he realized that he fucked up on the first one.
Yeah, there's no question. And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't know anything. For one, I didn't know anything about. I knew how to run a team. I knew how to manage employees. I didn't know anything about business. Right. Today,
I
don't want 30%. I want your seat at the table, and I'm gonna give you an offer for 30%. I'm gonna buy what you're fixing to.
Yeah. All right. So let's get back to. Well, hold on. You talked about raising the floor versus the roof. One of the points I wanted to make on that was when I was in the corporate world, they would basically set the bar somewhere, right, for your performance metrics above that, and then when you'd make it, guess what they would do?
Raise the bar way higher.
To me, that is like the worst thing you could do because then you're basically killing the morale.
It's so deflating.
So deflating. It's like, no, listen, at a certain point, I've made your money. Mm-hmm. Let me make my money. And leave that bar there.
You heard the analogy of the boss pulling up in a brand new Lamborghini to the job site, and they're like, "Boss, that's a really nice car, man. That's one day." And the boss says, "Yeah, you keep working hard. You keep listening to me, and I'll have another one of these."
Exactly.
Yeah,
because that's what
killed me.
That's how it works.
But so and I'm just, maybe I'm weird, maybe I'm different, maybe there are more people like me than I realize. But I would rather have 8 employees in brand new trucks than for me to have 8 new trucks.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
And shitty employees.
8 years.
That's right.
I guess that's the point. Is those that are listening that maybe you're in the situation where performance based pay may be on your radar or whatever. Let your employees be successful if they're good because they're only going to do better for you and the business.
You're going to make more money.
Versus you being greedy and like trying to take, every little bit from them you can, you're going to deflate them. They're going to leave. You're not going to have those employees. Let them be successful.
Yeah. And, let's just pick a number. Let's say $60 an hour. Let's say we're billing $60 an hour. I would rather have an employee who makes $50 an hour and I make 10 than for
you have to stress over anything.
Than for me to make that 50 and have to fight for whoever would be that dude that would be willing to do that for 10.
Yeah, we're not greedy people, but we're smart enough to know that we don't want to show up at the job at 7:00. Like, I'll take that $10 and let that employee do that job because I don't have to show up and make that $10 you're speaking of.
Well, it's just not what I'm good at. So I'd rather take $10 and let me. We've talked about before how time is more valuable than money to me.
Yeah, that's right.
So let me only do what only I can do. Mm-hmm. That's the other quote I should have said in the previous podcast.
Let me do what I can only do.
So my goal, my vision, my direction is I only want to do what only I can do. Mm-hmm. And I want to empower people who can do other things, who can probably do it better than me. We've talked about music before. I would rather, I can play a whole bunch of stuff, a little bit, but I'd rather be in a band where I have the best guy on this position, the best guy on this instrument.
And you're playing organ.
And I'm doing what only I can. How many organ players are there today?
You're the only one I know.
So I'd rather sit back quietly and only do what only I can do and empower other people to do what they're great at. And from a business standpoint, I think it's a good position to be in when you recognize talent in other people, you recognize value in other people. And instead of competing with your employees, which in my opinion is what a lot of employers do.
See, I hate that.
They try to measure their employees against what they can do. And at the end of the day, maybe I could find 10 people. Maybe I'm one of 10 who could do that. But I'm looking for the guy who can do it better than 10 or 12 of us.
Yeah. So employees are employees for a reason. And I'll tell you why. They are risk limit. Like, they don't want to take the risk that you want to take as an owner. Or don't have the ability to take that risk. And look, I love employees because they'll do what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And people say, like, Jerry, what would you say to your own employees? I'd say the same thing. You're scared. You're scared to jump off that ledge and go out on your own. Because when you make that step, I'm no longer your safety net. There's a reason that we employ people, right? Because there are a certain number of people, and this isn't a knock on the race or the society or anything. There are a certain number of people that are not willing to take that step and take all the risk.
Yeah.
Employees like to work their 9 to 5 for 30 freaking years.
That's what they want.
And get a gold watch.
That's what they want. That's what they want.
$500,000 in their 401k, which fluctuates. Or whatever their number is. I don't know, but they're not willing to be entrepreneurs.
That's what they want.
We would not be okay as a society without employees.
Right.
Like, we wouldn't. This is why the border wars are so important, because who's going to do the work? And I'm not worried about today in 2023, but I'm looking at the kids behind us, 2 generations or a generation. They're not workers.
No, they're going to get outworked in the field.
And I worry about where we're headed. So if you do have the chance to influence your employees, value add should be your number one target. Value add to your employee. Yeah. Don't take them for granted ever, because we're in a society today that employees are harder to find.
Yep.
Well, they'll either be a better person because they work for you, or you have stolen time from them, which is the one thing they can't make more of.
So let's hang on. Let's take a quick break, and I want to talk about what you guys think about tiered performance-based stuff. When we come back,
we'll be right back.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. When it comes to your auto and home insurance needs, make things simple and trust your Allstate experts. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your auto and home. Bundling saves money, sure, but it also saves you time. So you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact Clemson Allstate agent Shane Smith at 864-654-1047 today for a free personalized insurance proposal. Allstate, are you in good hands?
Hey, I'm Brad Price for Creekwood Landscaping. I have an opportunity to be with SouthCack
Syndicates
podcast. Welcome back, Brad.
Mr. Jerry Ketterman, Kyle Voss.
You
guys I just met yesterday, but have really connected
Yesterday
with them.
being-
I guess we didn't talk about that in the
years ago.
beginning. Yeah, we've all known each other for a long time.
We've been friends for 30 plus.
Yeah. So let's talk about
Tier based.
tier-based, which I'm a big believer in. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I won't get specific because I want to hear you guys' ideas on this. But like, there's a, say, 0 to 10 that just basically allows you to keep your job. Like that's what we expect of you is 0 to 10. Okay. 10 to 20, we're going to give you a little bump. Okay. And the little bump is going to make them some money and the company some money.
That's right.
Right. And then let's say 20 to 30, we're going to let you, the employee, make the majority of the money.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Because what happens in my personal,
You're talking about good to great.
yes. Because the way I see that,
Good, better, best.
yes.
Yeah.
Because the way I see that is that if you have a good employee that thrives in that kind of environment, 0 to 20 is they're going to knock it out of the park because they want to get to where the majority is going to go to them.
That's right.
So they're going to do what's expected. They're going to make the company some money, and then they're going to be gold to make themselves some money.
So we had 3 tiers in our company, and it was exactly what you're describing. It's good. You did good. You did better than good, and we're paying you. We're capping you out because you are the best. You are the top 3%.
You get a lion's share of what you make,
and we're talking 300 employees.
Yeah.
Right? So so it's tough because performance metrics didn't apply to the whole company. So when our technicians were clearing 6 digits, but our office girls were still making $38,000 a year, there wasn't a performance-based metric I could put in place for filing paperwork.
right?
Did you file it better than the other one?
But
I
it's
don't
part
know,
of the
but-
job. Like those guys can't do their job without them.
No, here was the combat of that, because you're absolutely right. Without the technicians in the field, there would be no papers to file. The men and women who filed the paperwork were in a heated building or a cooled building, 7 days a week, 365.
Yeah.
The technicians in the Midwest were in -14 to 102,
Right.
365. So you have to find that variable where it works in your own organization. And let me tell you this from experience: every organization is going to performance metric differently. You have to find out first what's most important to your mission statement of your company. That should be your metric number 1.
Right.
Profitability
Agreed.
should be the rest. And if your mission statement was written well, and not everybody has a mission statement, but in your head you do. If you own an LLC, you have a mission statement in your head. Brad, you got a mission statement for Creekwood Landscaping?
Well, I don't know that
Not on the wall,
yeah,
but you've got one in your head.
when we kind of talked about that a little bit, like I believe that quality is your brand, and I believe that efficiency is your
It's your profit. That's right.
And if I had to post it on the wall,
That's
think
your mission
I
statement.
think that would be our mission statement.
So based on that, your metrics would be quality number 1.
You can't make it if you can't perform at quality.
No, that's
period.
right. That's right. So if in your industry of your hustle of fabrication, I don't even call it a hustle. I call it a second job because you're killing it. If you had employees, your number 1 performance-based pay would probably be great content.
Yeah, and that would be back to the brand.
That's right.
Yeah.
Your
I
number
think
1
it's the
metric
most
would be
important
great
thing. Like
content.
I don't care how efficient you are. You can be the most efficient, and I'm in landscaping and grading, but you can be the most efficient company in the world. But the quality's not good.
Yeah.
You only have a certain number of jobs.
Yeah.
And we've gone through a period where, let's be honest, anybody who could sit and run some sticks could probably do a little bit of grading and
sure.
get by with just because everybody at home's been sitting there looking at their yard dying for somebody to do something. But at the end of the day, if the quality that's there becomes your brand, like the reason the phone rings is because of your quality.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like there's a balance there? I'll give you an example for you guys to kind of play on.
Reword the question.
I will. My example will reword it for you.
Okay.
So what I struggle with, because this is exactly what I struggle with. It's your brand is your quality. Your What was it? Your efficiency is your profit.
Efficiency is
Okay.
profit.
So for me, let's just go back to the YouTube deal. Sometimes if I focus too much on quality, I don't get out enough content, which is how I make money. The content side is my revenue, right? Mm-hmm. So I
from
can
a YouTube standpoint.
Yes, from a
right?
YouTube standpoint. So when it comes to quality, which is the brand, the better the quality, the better the brand name, right? If I make these super intricate, nice, well-rounded, great editing, all the stuff.
So let's
the brand. Hold on,
I can weld.
Right, but hold on.
But nobody's gonna watch me weld on your YouTube channel. You know what I'm saying?
They would. This is the struggle I've run into though. I can focus on brand and quality and make these phenomenal videos that are like an hour long. It's like movie style videos, right? But then I put out less content. Mm-hmm. It's less efficient.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll answer your question.
So where I struggle is I try to find a happy medium where it's like I want to keep the brand good, I want the quality good, but I don't want it to get in the way of the amount of content I put out.
So let me answer your question in one statement.
All right.
Perfection is the enemy of profit.
The enemy of good. Yeah. That's a great, you're right.
Perfection is the enemy of profit. When you try to make it perfect, you're already losing money while you're still trying to make your whatever it is better because you've missed 4 or 5 opportunities.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about quality, and I say that where quality is your brand, and that's a true statement. But the determination of level of quality, we talked about floor and ceiling a few minutes ago. Your client really should kind of determine the floor and ceiling of quality. Like,
we're talking you're inside your own house, inside your own company.
So I'm setting that.
You're raising your floor, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to really focus on the client trying to figure out where your floor and where their ceiling is, but I know that if you spend too much time on editing, or if you spend too much time in the backyard to appease your bid to perfection, every hour you lose money. In both cases, perfection is the enemy of profit.
Yeah,
That's
and
good.
I guess for me,
I love that.
For me in every business, I guess it goes back to your floor just has to be higher than the customer's floor.
Always.
Right.
Always.
But any higher floor than what they expect is unnecessary, and that goes back to what I'm talking about.
What Brad said, it's a la carte. We can do whatever the customer wants.
We can do it.
Unless you're worried about cost, call Brad.
Yeah.
Because he can get you there.
For like me, the people that are watching YouTube, they only expect so much. They're not expecting a documentary.
Right.
They're only expecting a YouTube video. So as long as my floor is what they expect, it doesn't benefit me any to make that floor any higher.
Mm-hmm. Right? Agreed. So you and knowing your viewers, knowing your clientele, if you have people who are watching your stuff because they're working on their stuff and they're looking for ideas and they're trying to figure out, okay, Kyle's really good at building cars. Well, I need to do a new front end on my car, so I'm going to watch how Kyle built this tubular front end on his car. At the end of the day, how good that weld is, and that's kind of what I was getting at a minute ago. Like at the end of the day, nobody's going to watch me weld, but it really doesn't matter if you welded that up or if I welded it up. They really wanted to see kind of how you reshape
the process,
the front of that car to alleviate weight and to build stability and be able to create a good product.
I want to say this as well. Performance-based pay will not fix your problems. It won't. If you're not a good leader, then forget it. Like your employee, there's a difference between performance-based pay and employee morale, because one is one thing and one's the other. If you combine the two, guys, you can set. There is no ceiling.
Yeah.
Like if your employee morale and they trust you with their life, right? Then you put performance-based pay in there. Man, that's just a bonus.
Well, and
it still screams profitability.
And when you start a company, you have a pretty small window when you can say, these are the guys I started this company with.
That's right.
Okay, so the guys who you start a company with are very, very important because they're the only guys who will ever see, the money run out in the checking account and you put that money,
right.
you know,
and they don't get scared.
well, yeah, and they know
that
they
you're
know
going to be taken care of.
Yeah, that guy, when we had no money, that guy made sure I still got a paycheck. Yeah. So that's a little bit limited. And when y'all talk about the corporate world, that's kind of why I glaze over a little bit because, you know, I'm looking at a very, very organic small business where, you know, I have a limited number of people who will have an opportunity to be a part of this. You know, one day will it be this huge thing where, you know, Creekwood's a place where you guys roll up and buy pavers to build your own fire pit from? I don't know.
Right.
But if that ever happens, then, you know, the employees who you bought those pavers from are not the same people that I'm working with right now to kind of grind through this.
But your 8 employees that you have today, they trust you with your life, right?
Yeah, because they know at the end of the day.
That's employee morale.
Yeah.
You know what's awesome?
Very important.
You know what's awesome about this is it ties back into Craig's episode on 26. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value.
He says value. I use the term quality, but it's the same.
It's
the
is.
same
Value
thing.
and quality is the same thing.
Yeah, value and quality, in my opinion, can be interchangeable as far as terms are.
Sure.
And I think that, you know, creating that opportunity for people to recognize the value or the quality that your company creates, and you figuring out, all right, if I've got 8 or 10 employees, are there 2 or are there 6 of those who that's more important than going home at 4 o'clock or 4:30 or you know whatever it is.
That's right. So we talked about employee morale, which I find equally as important as performance-based pay.
Sure.
But let me tell you where it can go sideways.
Because you know from personal experience.
I thought that, we were in the Midwest, so our winters were just they were just blistery, nasty. It's not like a South winter. It's constant. It doesn't go away. You don't get an 80-degree day. It's just winter. And so I thought.
By the way, I would not. I struggle here because and I'm going to back it up to Thanksgiving because the holiday season and how it works here. From Thanksgiving until March 1, it's hard to survive in my industry.
Any industry.
In the South.
That's right.
Where you're talking about, I just can't imagine what that's even like.
So I could see the cabin fever sitting in the office, and I've been with this company for many years, and I'm just like, you know what, I can do what I want because that's just my attitude, right?
Not you.
Still today, I do what I want.
Shocker.
So I went, I don't remember whose idea this was. I said, somebody go buy a margarita machine.
That's a great idea.
We're going to do Margarita Mondays, which I thought, in my opinion, my humble, very young opinion, that this would be great employee morale
booster
to make margaritas at 8 in the morning. And
give you the summer vibe, get you out of this winter funk.
Yeah, we did a Hawaiian day or whatever. Well, at some point, probably about the 4th Monday, we did Margarita Day. And this is what you have to be careful of because I live in the micro and I don't think about the macro. I didn't think about what my technicians in the snow who didn't get to participate in Margarita Monday
would think about
all of us in the office drinking margs, having a marg day.
Yeah.
And not only that, I later discovered it was illegal as shit to serve alcohol to all your employees in the office. And I get a phone call, and I'm just like, yeah, it's Margarita Monday, come over here. And he was like, are you messed up? I was like, well, it's 11. Like, you didn't call me at 8. We're good at 8. Don't call me before lunch, you know. So I got a pretty nasty slap on the wrist, and from our attorney team, from our legal team standpoint, they just could not in any way, shape, or form think that Margarita Monday was a good deal.
Was uncondonable.
Company morale was.
However, my mindset was in the right place.
Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
I performance-based pay my technicians. I'm trying to find out what we can do for the office staff because there's no metrics for the office staff. So we're trying to create the balance. And when you get to a certain number of employees, your job really isn't fun anymore unless you just really figure it out. Then it becomes a job. And I never wanted it to be a job for anybody that worked under us. We wanted you to have a good time. Now, there's hard labor on this other side, and those hard labor guys were making bank. I mean, bank.
Well, that goes back to
the
grass
office
is
we're
always
just trying
greener.
to figure out on how to keep them happy.
Grass is always greener on the other side. So we're a landscape and grading company. So the landscape guys, they pitch a fit because in the heat of the summertime, the grading guys are sitting in air conditioned machines doing their thing. Well, on the flip side of that, the grading guys are aggravated because the landscape guys get to go home at 2:00
And they're done.
Well, but
or in the winter, they don't have much to do.
Yeah. Don't have as much to do. But at the end of the day, from a year, when you look at the entire year, I need all 8 of those guys to be 100% bought in. So you give where you can give, you ask them to give back where they can give back. When it comes sod season, those grading guys, like they don't want anything to do with laying sod. But when it comes to winter time, and I've sent those guys, they're sitting at home while they're on a machine.
They're like, man, why can't I go home?
Well, but it doesn't matter if it's raining or if it's cold or whatever.
It's called balance.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's balance, and what you have to do is
figure it out.
And it comes down to value. Like I want this employee to value this employee.
Without that employee, this employee doesn't have a job, and vice versa. If they don't work together, and they had to understand that they're under one umbrella that should be based as a profit center with good morale.
Yeah, and where you come down to profit sharing, like at the end of the deal, like these guys are going to make money or profit not only for themselves but for the company doing this thing. These guys are doing the same thing. And because of how weather works or schedule works or whatever, there's an ebb and flow to that. And for me, where you talk about the success in that is when you begin to weed out who sees the value in this side versus this side, it's not just about whether or not I got a bonus. It's whether or not we as a company did well. And when you start to put the right people in the right seat on the bus who really see that, that my success is based on this. There's my bookkeeper, my office manager, she actually has nothing to do with grading or landscaping. But at the end of the day, every paycheck that you got, she made that happen.
That's exactly right.
So I hope you see value in her doing her thing. And if she's, on vacation or whatever, I hope you understand that she's earned the right to do that because she takes care of that.
You said something about we got all the right people in the right seats of the bus. When we started merging companies into different geographical locations, we figured out we had all the right people on the bus.
In the wrong seats?
We didn't figure out that we had them in the wrong seats. So our HR girl, Lisa, at the time, she had no HR experience. She was working somewhere else and then became HR assistant. She later became our HR director. It was the best decision we ever made, right? So that's one example. She was in the wrong seat of the bus. When you give somebody an opportunity, like all you're saying is, or not all you're saying, a lot of us think that we've got 10 employees and they're just out there with a shovel in their hand. What we don't really do a lot of the times is take a look at our 10 to the core. Because I guarantee you, I got one CEO, I got 2 entrepreneurs, and a media mogul. But we're paying them to dig a ditch. Like I would encourage you to learn about your employee, not you, Brad, just in general, learn about your employees and find out what they're passionate about. Because if they love you and they love the company and the standards that you've set forth for that company, they will only benefit you. They may not be in the right seat today, but learn about your employees because they've got hidden talents that will only gain profit.
Well, this is the kind of a nugget that we've talked about on and off and off and on last podcast and today. At the end of the day, from a business management standpoint, it really doesn't matter what you did if you didn't capture that well and take the opportunity to market that to put yourself out there to new opportunities.
That's right.
Cool. This has been a good one.
This is good. Brad, let everybody know where they can find you again.
creekwoodlandscapes.com.
And as usual, you can always email us at
SouthCackPod@gmail.com.
and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel at
Just search SouthCack
Syndicate
Podcast. But if you just search SouthCack, you'll find us.
You might find the apparel company, which you can find.
You have a YouTube
apparel.
channel?
I don't know if we do or not. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you, Brad, for your time. Thank you, Kyle, for your time. And we'll see you next time.